the start of your rowing journey, if you follow basically any training program and you follow it consistently, you will see results. Likewise, if you're just starting out on your own and you're figuring out on your own, again, a very simple approach: show up, get on the rowing machine, row, will get you results at the start. This video is about the 3 dials that you can just keep turning up at the start that get you results initially, but then once it kind of sets in, after a few months, start to plateau, and in some cases you can actually regress. So when I say 3 dials, I basically just mean there's sort of 3 areas that you can basically just turn the heat up on and it will get you results, but this is only at the start. The first dial is turning up. The second dial is kind of the session makeup, so maybe a newer session, or the length of the session, or the difficulty of the session, or the stroke rates in the session, those sort of the specific makeups of the session. And then the last one is how hard you work. So at the start, you can very simply just find progress by turning up, and you maybe start in the gym by doing, once or twice at the gym, and then you notice that, okay, you start to get hooked, you start to enjoy it, you start to notice the many benefits of rowing and indoor rowing or in a crew or whatever. So you turn up more, and the more you turn up, the more progress you can get. Until, of course, you keep turning up, you keep turning the dial, you notice more improvement, you're getting addicted, you're kind of feeling that improvement that you get from turning up, and it's really satisfying. And that's one of the appeals of rowing, is the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. It's very quantifiable. But of course, the problem with this one is obviously there's a limit to how much you can turn up. So that might be 4 times a week, that might be 6 times a week. Whichever case, you're going to get to a point where you've turned that turning up, the turn up dial, you've turned it all the way as far as it can go, and you've reached your limit. So again, that can be the first point of plateauing, or stagnation, or the feeling of you're not getting that same kick, that same buzz of feeling improvements just by turning this dial. So it can be the first kind of point of confusion, and where do I go from here? Why am I not seeing more results? The second one is the session makeup dial, and you can just turn that, you keep turning that dial until you get to a point. Again, you can start off by maybe you just get on the rowing machine and you do 20 minutes. You maybe do some basic intervals, or you go on, hit menu, workouts, and you pick one of those random workouts, or you've seen a video online, or for example, you've gone through my Monday workouts and you're trying all those. And they're kind of, you think, okay, I'll try this new session, this session will get me more power, this session will get me more endurance, this one's at a lower rate. You kind of start experimenting, you notice the different benefits of doing different sessions, and the novelty of that is very fresh at the start, and you keep thinking, okay, so a big part of my progression is trying new sessions. And, the more new sessions I try, the more I'm going to challenge my body, the more I'm going to adapt, and that does work to a certain extent. And of course, as well, you can increase the length of the session. But then again, once you're turning up that dial, you're going to get to a point where your body, it doesn't matter how new the session is, how much of a novelty it is, you will hit a ceiling, and you can't just simply find a new session that's going to get you fitter and stronger. It becomes much more a case of how you use those sessions on a longer term scale. But then that can be kind of the second point that you hit, where you feel like you hit a plateau or a ceiling, because you've now ran out of sessions to try. Maybe you've maxed out your window where you only have 40 minutes that you can train, and you're training for 40 minutes on the rowing machine, and again, you're hitting that ceiling, and maybe you keep trying new sessions, and you keep searching new ones, you keep experimenting, and it's not giving you the same progress that you were getting at the start. Now again, this is where you have to start looking at the actual makeup of the session, the longer term planning of the session, and how you work that in. Again, I always say go and look at the Row Faster series if you want to look at some of that stuff, the long term planner, the session makeups. There's some good info there. But again, this is just kind of highlighting some of the problems that people can have at the start of their rowing journey. Then the last dial, now this can be the most influential, it can get you the most results. It can also be the most dangerous dial, the most volatile dial that can cause regression, and it's the hard work dial. Now, of course, generally with most things in life, especially with people that, busy professionals, the harder you work at work, the more you focus, the more you push it, the more you get. With rowing, it's not as simple as that. And now, of course, again, at the start, you're so new to the sport. The harder you work, the more you push yourself on, say, a 6x500, the more you push yourself in terms of how focused you are within a session, how much intensity you bring to the session. When you keep turning that dial at the start, you'll get results. You notice you work harder, you know when you've worked harder as well, and you feel good because you've reached a new limit, you've pushed past the previous limit, maybe I should say, and that's a really good feeling. People really do enjoy it, and it does get you results at the start. However, when you start to slow down on that progress and you start to see, okay, maybe you get a bit more frustration, you're not seeing the results you used to as much, you maybe start questioning, okay, maybe I'm not increasing as much because I can still be working harder. So this is a dial that people often really go to, and they keep turning it up. And with more plateauing, with more stagnation comes more feeling of like, I need to work harder. And what happens is when you don't do this in the right way, where you're balancing recovery and your higher intensity, your harder work, you do push yourself into a point of regression where you're doing too much, you're not recovering, and you can often start going slower, and then you start going slower and you start thinking, okay, I need to work even harder. And then it just becomes this vicious loop of overtraining, seeing bad results, pushing harder, overtraining even more. And again, that's why I say it's probably the most dangerous dial. So that's kind of the summary of the 3 dials, I call them, that you can turn at the start of your rowing journey, but very much hit a limit. So if you want to reach that next level in your rowing, you have to start looking at the finer details and the way that you can manipulate your training. And it doesn't just become a case of, turning, 10, 10, 10 to all of them. You have to kind of slightly play around with them, the specifics of it. And, I like to think of it, you go from using 3 dials to this massive like control board where you've got all sorts of dials that you want to be turning at the right time. Maybe some dials ignore entirely. This is, if I can give you some examples, this thing like your long-term planning, your focus of a training block, the actual makeup of the high intensity sessions, make sure they're tied in with what you're working on right now, identifying your weaknesses, changing dials in terms of like your recovery, your nutrition, your technique, your mindset, the length, structuring the length of your sessions, of your UT2, maybe the makeup of your UT1 as well. You want to make sure that is all incorporated and in a way that is getting the most out of you. And another dial as well, of course, you can look at is the data, looking at your information, looking how that's all tying up with where you want to be in a training block, and making sure that everything's in line. There's so many more areas that you can look to improve on. And I mean, generally, if you're at a point where you've reached all these dials turned to the max, the first thing I'm going to say is you're probably going to need to do some recovery work. So if any of this stuff's resonating with you, the first thing I would say is, take a week where you maybe have 1 extra day off, or your volume, just half it, maybe cut out some high intensity, get your energy levels back up, and then start to go again. Except start looking, and it doesn't have to be 100 dials at once. It can be, you pick one thing specifically that you're going to work on, that you're going to try and change, and you just really focus on how can you maximize that dial and how can you maximize what you're getting out of it. So yeah, again, this is kind of me. I love analogies with my coaching. I love to kind of give people sort of visual ideas of some things, and this is kind of one of them. So again, maybe a bit more wishy-washy, a bit more holistic sort of approach, but just trying to give you some ideas maybe that might resonate with you, that might hit home, and give you some information that you can go away and use and improve your rowing and take it to the next level. But yeah, if you like this content, if you want to see more of it, if any of this is resonating with you, if you have some question on like more dials that you can turn, let me know down below. If you enjoyed this content as well, like it, and if you want to see more of it, subscribe to me. I picked the arbitrary number of 1,000 subscribers by 15th of July. So let's try and get to that, and let's see if we can get 50 likes on this video. And yeah, okay, bye.